Today's speaker, Chef Tory Miller, executive chef and co-owner of 4 restaurants, and they're listed here, but I am not even going there, here in Madison. Chef Tory grew up working in his grandparents' diner in Racine before moving to New York to attend the French Culinary Institute and work his way through some of the finest restaurants in the city. Chef Tory is also the most recent winner of the Iron Chef Showdown. Beating the monster of the culinary world, Bobby Flay, during the Food Network's All-American Meat Battle, using the theme ingredient bison. The title of his presentation for us is Future Growth of the Madison Food Scene. We look forward to your presentation, Chef Tory, and we have made a contribution to the Rotary International Polio Plus Fund as a way to say thank you for speaking with us today. In addition, you will get this collector item, History of Rotary. Please join me in welcoming Chef Tory.
Thank you. I would have came sooner if I would have known there was Rice Krispie treats here. Everyone knows that those are my fave. I am super excited to be here. Thank you so much for having me. The restaurants that we own and that I'm a partner in and the chef of are L'Etoile restaurant, and they all have funny names except for Gray's, which sometimes people call like Graze. For some reason, just Gray's. It's just Gray's. But L'Etoile, Gray's, and Sujo, and Estrellón. And when I was actually approached at market. Where are you? I was approached at market to come here one morning on a Saturday morning, as we go around as we do every Saturday. And it was one of those things where it was like, yeah, it sounds rad, man. I'm totally down. And then my partner Diane Christensen was like, hey, are you going to talk at Rotary, and what are you going to call your thing? And I was like, I have to call it a thing? So I brought a pad that I wrote stuff on, but I never really follow any notes or anything. And at the time, obviously, like, we weren't talking about that thing that happened on television because it was still a secret. But and it's cool. It's super cool to talk about that experience too. But I thought I would just go back a little bit and talk a little bit about where I came from, so I was born in South Korea and quickly orphaned and adopted by a family in Racine, Wisconsin, and thus the last name Miller, which I still get funny, like people that have never like seen the internet before or something are like, oh, they're shaking my hand like, you're not, yeah, okay. And it's just kind of, and they're like, but dinner was awesome, and it's like, cool. But yeah, so my grandparents had a restaurant in Racine called the Park Inn, and it's still there. They got really awesome hamburgers and malts and stuff, and I still go there on Christmas and I go down to Racine just to get Kringles and cheeseburgers and malts on Christmas Eve, and then I go home and I do this like huge like Asian meal at home with I cook for like 10 people, even though it's just like my wife and my kids, but like 10 grown adult me people. So anyway, we still go down to Racine to get these cheeseburgers at Park Inn. I started working there when I was, my first memories are when I was 5. So it was like kindergarten back then. I don't know, it seems so different now, but like back then you would just go half day. And so at noon, like one of my aunt or my mom or my grandma, everyone worked at the restaurant, would run and pick me up. And then I would go and sit in the back of the diner, and I would make meatballs for the burgers, or I'd make coleslaw, or coleslaw dressing was like one of my favorites, which is probably why I'm obsessed with mayonnaise still. And like cutting up vegetables and things like that, like super young. And then by the time I was like 6 or 7, we had this metal step ladder. It was super OSHA approved, that I would stand on in front of the grill and like make omelets and scramblers and stuff for my family. We would all go to church, and then we would go to the restaurant after and open the restaurant, and I would make breakfast for everybody in my family while they were like doing stuff. Or turns out they were basically just sitting at the table drinking coffee, but they were like, yeah, if he wants to cook, that's cool. And from there, like I worked all the way through high school. I always say I legally started working when I was 13, when I could get the work permit. And I still remember going to like the Urban League and signing the little thing and feeling super official, even though I had already been working for, so many years at that point. But cooking and things like that was never really like a viable kind of career back then, and I was born in 75, so I'm 42. I'm Asian, so like people are like, really? Like, how old are you? Like, it's a mystery until we're like, it's always a mystery for a lot of people, like how to figure that out. But yeah, so back in the day in like the 80s and stuff, it's like if you were a cook in a restaurant, you were like, you were not successful. You were not you didn't do well in school and all of that sort of stuff. Or, you just got lucky and you followed your dreams and you made a life out of it. One of the things that is ironic to me now is the thing that I went to college at Stevens Point for a couple of years and quickly dropped out of that for reasons we won't get into. But I had started working in a restaurant there. Full disclosure, I was a doorman / bouncer at a sports bar that decided to close and then become like a brew pub. And I did all of the construction for them during the shutdown. And then basically they were like, we need cooks in the kitchen. I was like, I'm super down with that. So like I started working there. And this was in like 96, I think. And ironically, I say ironically because like I would watch a lot of the Food Network back when there was like chefs on there still. And like really, there's a lot. It's basically like a game show network now. But I thought it was always super cool. You could turn on and like it would just be like Bobby Flay or Mario Batali or Ming Tsai or some of those chefs that I always think about the Too Hot Tamales, like the Mary Sue Milliken. And anyway, the point was I was watching the Food Network and I actually saw a commercial for the French Culinary Institute starring Bobby Flay and Drew Neaporent, Drew Neaporent is a monster businessman in New York. He opened Tribeca Grill, and Nobu is like his shining star, obviously, but Batard is another one. And I vividly remember seeing this commercial and Bobby Flay being like, hey, come to New York and go to the French Culinary Institute, be a chef like me. And I was like, I will do that, Bobby Flay. Sounds like an excellent idea. And so like obviously like I went out to New York, I went to culinary school, and another ironic twist was like I went into Mesa Grill and I was like, this was one of Bobby Flay's star restaurants, and I was like, hey man, here's my resume, I would really like to get a job here. And the sous chef literally laughed at me at my resume because like, I hadn't worked in a lot of great restaurants and didn't have a lot of experience. And I was just like a student, not even a student yet at that time. So it was one of those moments where I was just kind of like, oh man, Bobby Flay sucks. No, I didn't say that. But I was really kind of like hurt by it and didn't know what I was going to do. So I started working in catering and doing stuff like that out in the city. And eventually one of my culinary instructors at the school got me a job at Judson Grill, which another ironic twist is that Bobby Flay was a partner in the Mesa Grill. It was called the 52nd Street Grill Corporation. And they would come for their meetings once a month with all the partners. And this is this is a really true story. And I feel really bad about it. But he came in and I'm like, oh man, and like all the kitchen guys, and mind you, like I worked with a lot of Dominicans and Puerto Ricans at the lunch shift because I went to school at night at Judson. And so like we were all minorities in the kitchen except for the chef and the sous chef. And Bobby Flay would come in and this vivid time that I remember seeing him, he asked me to make him a cappuccino or an espresso, a coffee. And I literally pretended that I didn't speak English. Because I was like, you should have hired me, son. I could be working for you. I would have made it for you a long time ago. Which like I said, I feel really bad. I feel really bad about it. But yeah, I being in New York and working in some great restaurants, it was great to be a mentor or be mentored by Bill Telepan and John George and Alfred Portali and Danny Meyer at 11 Madison Park as a business owner. But I always felt so disconnected from the food, you know. And I lived in Queens and I lived in Brooklyn, and I always took the train in at super weird hours with frankly the working class and of Manhattan. And we would always, I mean, it would be like 1, 2, 3, sometimes 5 in the morning on the train going home from work. And there was a point where I realized like I was going into some of the most expensive neighborhoods and working in some of the most amazing cathedral restaurants. But I felt so disconnected from where our food was coming from and disconnected from the clientele that we have. And I just wanted to like be a little bit smaller, I guess, and be closer to food. I had no idea where I was going to go. A young lady by the name of Odessa Piper offered me a job at L'Etoile. And truth be told there, I also sent my resume off to Harvest and I think Luigi's and the old Opera House. And Chef O was the only one that called me back. And she would go to the market every Saturday. And this was like before the internet was like really a thing that anyone knew how to use, except for like teenagers maybe, or like musicians. And I remember she had won a James Beard Award. And mind you, like I had heard of Iron Chefs and that sort of thing, and being an Iron Chef and beating an Iron Chef and all that stuff long before I had ever heard of a James Beard Award, you know, or the James Beard Foundation. Even though in the culinary world, the highest achievement you can have is a James Beard Award. I mean, that's incredible and something that most chefs never even get close to, you know. So like, it's funny to me that, you know, that's what drew me to Chef O. But like the things that when you can see the Iron Chef on TV, like it just touches so many more people, which I'll get into. But Chef O, she and I played phone tag for a long time, back and forth, and then finally on a Saturday morning, you know, we got a hold of each other. And she, if anyone remembers the old L'Etoile, it was like up this creaky stairs, and she was literally carrying produce from the market. She's all out of breath. She's like, "Oh my God, don't hang up!" Like we really wanted to connect that day, and you know, she invited me over. I made her some lunch, and I drove from New York into Madison on like October 31st. My lease started the next day, and I also started working at L'Etoile that day. And then by Christmas, I was the chef de cuisine there, and you know, a lot of stuff happened after that. But Chef O took a chance on me then, and she was just a great mentor for me. And one of the best things about working for her was how much she respected everyone, and it taught all of us to respect her so much, even though that she wasn't necessarily in the kitchen every day, like standing next to you and you know, in the trenches working service. It was her direction and guidance and her leadership that we all just valued so much and still do. Where, you know, I was lucky enough to like form the partnerships that we have. My 3 partners in Deja Food Group, Diane Christensen and Tracy Silverson and Chris Wakowiak. We always say that we're the legs of the table, right? That we set, and we're all equal. We keep the table level and all of that stuff. And in partnerships, and that's another thing I took from Chef O. You know, is like you have to respect everyone equally, no matter if it's your dishwasher, your porter, your sous chef, your maitre d', your GMs. And your customers. I think a lot about, you know, where we're going as far as the future of Madison food. Our partners, my partners and I, like we were able to like kind of, you know, like not on purpose necessarily grow to where we are and push forward and keep doing the things that we were doing. When we opened Gray's, it was really a matter of self-preservation to try to be more viable and more sustainable as a business. But you know, for me personally, like I was always like, I want to have a place where people can eat every day, where my farmers and my friends can come and eat every day and not tell me like, well, when it's my birthday, 5 years from now, I'll be able to save up enough money and go to L'Etoile. And you know, it was one of those things, like it was always my mission to make that restaurant. Plus I really love fried chicken, and I wanted a fried chicken restaurant. Oh man, this is why I should do notes. But the point for me was in Manhattan and in New York, the food scene there is like arguably the best in the world, right? I mean, it's definitely still the mecca for me. It's really just an incredible, group of chefs and restaurateurs that are creating this, heartbeat for our country and pushing everyone forward. Everyone looks to New York, to see what they're doing. And Chicago now. I mean, Chicago is definitely like a force to be reckoned with. But for me personally, because I was in New York, like that's where I was, I fell in love with food and restaurants. But the chefs there, even though behind the scenes, all chefs hate out all the other chefs. Like all the chefs are like, that's not necessarily true. But in business, like, you want to be successful and you want to, always feel like you're the best at what you do. But the thing that struck me the most is like you could have a restaurant like Judson Grill was in the same restaurant as Le Bernardin, which is one of the best restaurants in the world. And the two chefs were like just great together. They would collaborate, they would share ingredients, they would share cooks. Like I worked in Le Bernardin's kitchen, I had to wear white pants and a white hat and stuff, and it was super weird. But like they needed someone, and Chef Bill asked me if I would go over there, and I was like, I can do that? Cool, and he was like, yeah, like we're sharing, it's fine, they need someone. And like for organizationally, like they would support each other in their fundraising, and any chef you ask, you can ask me right now, and Philip's here, like if we say to one another, like, hey, I really want to raise money for this thing, we'll do it. Everyone says yes. But when I got to Madison, I felt like everyone was kind of like closed off. Like it was like this smaller, even though like we're all so close together, I felt like for some reason the community of chefs wasn't close, which is why I wanted to start the Madison Area Chefs Network. So to bind all the chefs together and bring us all together and, kind of like, rising tide raises all ships sort of thing. And my mission in life and in my career is to promote, now is to promote Madison as a food destination, as a city that is worth visiting, like not just in the summer. But obviously in the summer, it's awesome. I only bring friends like, come in July. It's going to be awesome. We could do all of the outside stuff. And once people come here, they're like, oh my gosh, like there's so many things happening. And I always say to everyone, like, if some magazine would anoint Madison as the next food city, then all of a sudden what we do is validated for some reason. But if all of us chefs work together and we constantly are doing and living our lives like we are already anointed, we anoint ourselves as that. And we want to live that every day. But what's going to drive that is more tourism, for us. And what we need is to be promoting ourselves and doing that as a destination, but like with other things. So like we try to partner with other organizations, and we love working with, all the local media here and stuff like that. And it's just really important for me because like it seems like restaurants are opening every day almost, and there's a new crane popping up on the skyline every day, and into those buildings is eventually going to be filled with people, and the building owners want to have restaurants in them or something that's going to bring vibrancy to the building, which I understand. But we need people obviously to dine in them. To me, the future of our food scene is going to lie with young people, especially women. And I'm not just saying that because my wife is a very strong and wonderful woman. But when I work in kitchens, and I've worked in a lot of kitchens where women are not treated fairly and are not given the opportunities because, frankly, the chefs think that they can't handle it or they can't take it. And I can promise you, I've worked with some of the most, the strongest chefs that are women. I can't even describe like working like right now. Like I work with Chef Jamie at Suzhou, and she is a powerful leader, and just like everyone respects her for how hard she works, and she never takes a day off. She always just shows up and bangs stuff out. My two business partners, Tracy and Diane, are just like role models for me, and I just think that it takes a lot of leadership, and it takes a lot as a leader to say like, it's beyond like, well, why should we treat someone differently, or why should we give them a shot over someone else? Because frankly, it's just time, and you need to. But the other thing for me is youth and young people and catching them. Like I love to teach these kids that are at Sherman Middle School and at some of the high schools here that I've been able to connect with. But I feel like the 7th and 8th grade level is like the perfect time to teach people how to cook food and choose food for themselves. They have a different kind of sense of pride in what they're making. And as a chef, you never start out thinking, man, I want to be an advocate. And I always say, like, we have to all be advocates in our positions. I think, especially when you look around this room, like, you guys don't, I'm kind of preaching to the choir, you know, but like to other chefs, like I always say, like, you have to get out of the kitchen in order to, you know, use the platform you have in any way that you can, whether that is influencing. Like, I still have kids that I started with, Sherman. We have a program called Cooking Healthy Options in Wisconsin. It's CHOW. And these kids like still will come back from, like, even in high school, they're all at East now. And they're just like, man, Chef Tory, I remember when you used to come in and show us how to make fried rice and whatever. And it's super rad to like know that we touched that. But also now some of them are like looking for jobs. And some of them are like, I want to do this, you know, and that's super cool. But to be an advocate, you know, you have to understand the power of your words and you have to back them up, I think, with your actions. And that's why, like, I think a lot for me, as far as like where I want to see our industry go, is just to be in a more positive light and just keep being a part of the community and making sure that we are reaching out and doing things like making connections at meetings like this. I think this is an incredible opportunity for me to be here. And I'm very thankful that I'm in this position. But frankly, to get to like the real meat of it, yes, Bobby Flay is not super nice. It was exciting for me to be there. I was honored to represent for Madison and Wisconsin. Let me see what. No, it really, really, to be on that stage, it was very nerve-wracking. And I was frankly happy with how it turned out. It was re-edited so that Chef John Besh could be edited out because, you know, time's up for that stuff too. And I thought they did a great job. You didn't notice him. You didn't see any like weirdness except for me. And people will say like they were like, oh, you seem so calm and stuff. And it's like, you see, like, I'm like sweating. I'm like freaking out the whole time. But I always try to like keep my team calm by being weird and quirky and making sure that they all remember why we do anything is because we love it. And if you don't love it, you're never going to do it as well as the next guy that does love it. So we always want to be the best. And I'm really glad that we won. I'm really glad that you guys asked me to do this before you knew I was going to be on that show and that I won. So I'm very, very honored and tickled that I was here. Thank you so much for having me. I'm not sure if I'm supposed to answer questions. I have time for a few quick questions. Hi. Yes. Hi, Mary. Oh, yeah.
Thank you, Chef Tory. My name is Mary Donahue. I work for the Ronald McDonald House here in town. Clearly, I love foods, and I've loved all your stories about how you made your way into it. And quite recently, our organization was invited to come in and talk to the Madison Area Chefs Network. And I wonder if you can share with all of us the good work that Madison Area Chefs Network is doing and the organizations they've aligned with and the impact they're having.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you. And thanks for coming to that meeting too. The thing for us is that, you know, we try to like stay on mission as far as like supporting food banks and things that make sense. Because for us, like, it's always a shame, like if there are people hungry in Madison and we have food that we want to be able to help them. But unfortunately, like, you can't just be one of those people that's like, hey, take my leftovers. Someone picked them up. Why don't you want my leftovers? Like that. Would any of us like want to just eat leftovers? Even, I mean, it's like you still want to treat people like humans and like that you care about them. And that's what food does at its core, in my opinion. So I think we wanted to get back to that. So we choose to support like the Double Dollars program, which is a really great program here in Madison. And it's really one of those organizations where it's a win-win for everyone. So like the farmers market supports, and like every dollar spent at the farmers market is matched by the Double Dollars program, so it doubles your money. And so people that are in need, as opposed to just using food stamps or the WIC program and things like that, they can definitely really benefit. But it's cash in hand for the farmers too, so I just think that that's a great program. We definitely have, you know, with our marquee events like the Yum Yum Festival and Chef Week, which is coming up, and Sustainable Seafood Week, all of those are to benefit local charities and things like that. So like we're really, really happy to be able to combine our forces for that.
But I have a question, Regina
hey.
Milner. First of all, thank you. Excellent presentation.
Thanks.
But a few months ago, we had another one of your chef colleagues talk to another group. And I want to ask you a question about the financial viability of the restaurants. He made a comment, and I'd like to know if you agree with it. He said one of the best things that we could do as supporters of fine restaurants is go out on Tuesday night.
Right.
And would you share with us a little bit about the smoothing of the financial support for the restaurants?
Well, it'd be great if we were all just like financially viable. You know, I think like if Madison, that's what I always keep saying. It's like if we had more tourism, you know, that would draw more people in and fill our restaurants, I think that would be great. But yeah, I mean, if we talk in our restaurant all the time, if we were able to open like a brunch restaurant that was open at like, you know, from like 9 to 1 every Saturday and Sunday and make it be like 600 seats, we would be full like every Saturday and Sunday because you would always be able to take everyone and that would be all you would do. Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Mondays, like all those days. And it's not, you know, it's this business is a luxury. You know, it's a luxury business to be in. Like we provide that service for people, but it also supports a lot of people behind the scenes. We have over 200 and something, 6 maybe. I just saw a new person at Grace. And I'm like, hey, you. Good to see you. But yeah, so like we support a lot of people and we support a lot of farmers and there's a lot of people that we touch within our organization that also need that support, and every dollar that we get in kind of goes to that, you know, and it's one of those things where, yeah, it would be great that if everyone didn't eat just at 7, you know, like make plans a little earlier, crying out loud. have an earlier lunch. Come at 5 when everyone wants to eat. Now that I'm a dad, like I have the young kids, like we're like, what time do you open? Can we get in at 4:30? Like, geez, like that's like my life. You know, it's a normal, but it's kind of cool because like my kids eat at 4:30 and then I can get back for service. Anyway, but yeah, that would be great. Either eating later or earlier, like just kind of being more flexible with your plans. But yeah, I mean, I think those are the things because like a lot of people are like, oh man, I tried to get into Estrion. It was so like, it was packed. I couldn't get a reservation. And it's like, well, what time were you coming? And they're like, oh, 7. We had 7 people. It's like, well, why don't you just look at like 5:30 or 5:45 and, you know, you've been fine. Anyway, that would be really awesome if everyone did that. Hi.
Chef, you mentioned you're grateful for being here, and it touched me so much that I want to give you 2 additional opportunities to be grateful. One
Yes.
is, I asked Uncle Google, and he says that L'Etoile is closed on Monday nights, and that's when the UW Rotaract Club happens to meet, which is basically UW's Rotary Club for college students. We have the president here. She's a very nice guy.
Do you guys hear that violin?
And we'd love to have you.
Am I?
We'd love to. No, yeah, that's we actually he is a violinist. That's pretty funny. So we'd love to have you be a speaker there, and that would be one opportunity for you to be grateful. And the other opportunity would be to join this here club. Look at all the good-looking people in the audience. You don't do anything on Wednesdays at noon.
I never do anything.
So
no.
What a wonderful opportunity. Would you say yes to one or both of those? Not to put you on the spot.
Yes, I will for sure. Of course, man. Like, let's talk. Well, I would love to come to meetings, and this is awesome. If you guys have treats all the time, I'm down.
Good job, Moses. Tori, hi. Deb Archer here with the Convention and Visitors Bureau. Anyway,
Hi.
Dory, thanks you always are helping with all the media people we bring to town, and we're so proud to present what you have to do. So I kind of have a question, Tori, and I kind of also have something that's sort of a statement to the club is, you know, we work with your colleagues all the time, and I know that one of the things that you're facing right now is finding enough people to work. I mean, I know some of your colleagues who literally have had to stop serving lunch. They've had to close because they can't find people to work.
Right.
And I think one of the things that I have sort of learned through you and your colleagues, and I don't know whether you feel this, is that there tends to be a stigma in this community to have people work in the service industry, that it's not well paid and that it's
not a 4-year degree thing. And I don't know how we change that mind shift to let people know that when you work in the service industry, you learn so many skills, and it's such a great way to work in a career. So I don't know if you have any response to that, or.
Yeah, I mean, we were facing more of a shortage, and it's one of those things where we've reached out, like as a network, we've reached out to. There are plenty of people that live on Park Street and live on Allied Drive, and that are like, I need a job, but they literally like need education. So that's where programs like the Workforce Program have started through the Underground Food Collective, and it's one of those things where it's like connecting people that want to work in this industry but don't know how to get into it. And I mean, and that means like literally, like we're talking to them about how to write a resume, how to do an interview, how to figure out the bus schedule, how to commit like to things that you do, the things that you say you're going to do. I think one of the things, if I can be frank about it, is like the way that the industry is, and this is real, is like people have a certain expectation for how much food costs and what it costs to put that food on your plate. No matter how delicious or beautiful it is, people have an expectation for why is food this expensive, or why is food this cheap. Unfortunately, a lot of times, and I talk about racism in food a lot, but I'm not going to get into that. But people don't know what it costs, basically. And then, so like you're as a business, like your ceiling for how much you can charge for your steak tartare or your cheeseburger is right here. So no matter if that cheeseburger really should cost here, people won't buy that cheeseburger. If the cheeseburger is $20 versus a cheeseburger that's $8, people don't get that disconnect. And so there's only a certain amount that you can raise prices to make sense to people. But then people coming in, whereas I would say to like a lot of people, like, oh yeah, like if you don't have any experience, but you just literally need a job, I can have you either wash dishes, be a busser, be a prep cook. These are all necessary jobs in the industry. But it used to be that was a quote unquote minimum wage job. If you were a nice restaurant, or if you were a good, if you were in that good place, like you would be able to be like, oh, I give you $10 an hour. Now it's like they're not in the door for less than $11.50. And that's like step one of your people, right? So then line cooks, where do they go from minimum wage? My first job, Judson Grill, $7.25, right? In New York. I was $25 short on my rent on my bills. So like, I don't know if anyone can ever remember doing that. It's like, yeah, I'm going to pay my light bill this month. I'm going to pay my phone bill next month. I was short. And the point of that is like, now it's like line cooks, 14, 15, in the door. And it's very difficult. Chef Odessa used to be able to sell it as like back in the day, and restaurants like L'Etoile would say like, you are getting your career started. You are getting your resume builder. And I'm not just saying, I mean, like I've had chefs leave L'Etoile and they're at Alinea, they're at 11 Madison Park, they're at the French Laundry, and it is still that place. It's the jump off, but it's one of those things where like we as restaurants can only afford to raise our prices so much. And there's only so many clientele that are coming into the restaurants. And I'm not just talking about mine. I'm just saying as an industry wide, it used to be like that, if you have 25% food costs, 25% labor costs, 25% overhead, like you're doing okay. That's how you turn the profit. But even back in the day, like fine dining, white tablecloth restaurant, even though they're quote unquote the most expensive, maybe 2.5% profit is like a serious win, And as soon as you start messing with that, and as soon as like we're like, well, let's pay everyone a living wage, which we do, and we're behind, but we can't. There's only so much you can pass that on to your customers, is what I'm trying to say. So it's very difficult. It's a very difficult industry to kind of survive in right now, which is why we need more tourism and we need more bodies in the seats. Butts in the seats always equals a win. Doesn't matter. Yeah, we're good. Are we good? Yeah, we're good. Thank you so much.
I know there's a lot of questions. Yes, there's a lot of questions, so feel free to come to the podium. You make cooking look cool, but no. Okay, we are adjourned.